Welcome to Life After Corporate, your ultimate guide for making the leap from corporate leader to entrepreneur. I'm Deb Boulanger, entrepreneur, executive leader, and founder of the Launch Lab for Women Entrepreneurs. This is your time to break through the glass ceiling once and for all and get your ticket to the C-suite. Come back each week to get the leading strategies, advice, and tools that will give you the skills and confidence you need to replace your corporate paycheck. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome back to another episode of Life After Corporate, my friend. And if you're new to our show, welcome home. This is where you get solid advice, strategies, and tools to help you build a solid business foundation that grows over time and fulfills your vision and mission for your work. And although you might be just getting started, the foundation that you put in place now will determine how quickly you can grow your business and your team. Or perhaps you're already feeling the pinches of not enough time to service the clients that you have, or the feast and famine revenues that result from not having a good business foundation and a plan for growth in place. So how do you grow a services-based business? If you started as a solo coach or consultant or freelancer for hire, you might find that early success can quickly fade if you aren't laying down the basic foundations for growth. So how do you know when to hire, who to hire, and how to get more clients in the door when you have challenges serving the ones you already have? And how do you go from sole service provider to taking on the CEO role of your growing business? Our guest today is Ivy Slater of Slater Success Strategies, where she works with CEOs of service-based businesses to put in those basic foundations for growth and have them take the leadership role as CEOs for their businesses. She's the author from The Bar, that's B-A-R-R-E, to the Boardroom, Choreographing Business Success Through Authentic Relationships. Ivy is an expert on building teams, mastering sales, and forging long-term growth strategies for her clients. And it is my pleasure to welcome you to Life After Corporate. Welcome, Ivy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am thrilled to have you. First of all, we've known each other for several years.
For years.
We've been in the same circles, and I've heard you speak, and you always deliver such a value to the people who are in the audience. And I know you don't have a traditional Life After Corporate story. So before we get started, share with our listeners how you got to where you are right now. Where did you start?
You know, shockingly, I was never in corporate. I graduated college and I worked for a commercial production company, so a production company that produced commercials. As a receptionist first I did temp work looking for a job. Then I got this job as a receptionist, and I was like, great. I had a degree in dance, a degree in communications. I was like, I could work my way up. I saw myself as a producer. And I was fired from that job before the end of my first year. I went on to work with, actually from there, first, one women-owned business that was a very successful health club chain in the Northeast. And I worked as the owner's right hand, and I learned an enormous amount. I learned sales, since I was all of a sudden the person who was delegated to put together their sales trainings programs. I learned management. I actually learned how to be a working mom, although I was not even married yet. I learned so much. I learned about PR and advertising and marketing from them. I went on from there. I took an opportunity and worked with another organization, a corporate event company owned by two sisters. And again, I worked to the right hand to the owner who ran the business, did the sales, did all the implementation with a background in accounting. She was a CPA. So all of a sudden, I kind of started embracing how every number had an impact. From there, I went into the printing industry, and that's where I started building a book of business because I had a background in sales. I was good at sales. I didn't realize how good I was in sales. Built a book of business, became a junior partner, not because it was offered, because I demanded it based on my sales. And then went on to spearhead that company into a $3.5 million merger, honest to God, so I could have a second child. I said, we have to go bigger if I'm going to have more children. And they're like, what? We figured you're going to want to scale it back if you wanted more kids. I was like, oh, no.
No, kids are expensive.
Not only kids are expensive, I said, but if I wanted to work with the vision I had created for myself, which was to own a business, lead a business, and be an accessible, in-your-face mom. I needed a good support. And I said, the only way we're going to do that is to go big.
Yeah.
So let's go big. And I did, and I spearheaded that merger, had child number 2, and that child was 2 years old. I realized that what was going on internally wasn't fulfilling my future. There's a lot of teaching stories there that we're not going to get into right now. Mm-hmm. And in 1997, I went out and built my own company, my own printing business. Did really well until I realized that I was not fulfilled. My kids in a blink of an eye were going to be teenagers. And I said, they're going to go off to college and before I know it, and I'm going to be a printer. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a producer. I had all these goals, dreams, and desires. And not for nothing in the printing industry. It was a great industry. Lord knows I did very, very well. I said, but this wasn't my dream. It just kind of happened to be how I got to my dream of owning a business, and there has to be more. And I said, okay, in doing that, where am I going next? And through market research and a lot of conversations, I ended up becoming certified as a professional coach, opening Slater Success, creating a coaching and consulting company that helped other companies scale and grow, and leaders be smarter and better leaders, having full fulfillment in their organizations and their lives. And to do that, I ran 2 businesses for 2 years as I transitioned. I went against my accountants, who thought I was absolutely crazy and verbally abused me when I told him what I was going to do, and fired him and moved on to, a professional team that was behind me 100% and has grown this company to a vision that I never even envisioned when I started this vision in 2007 of opening a Slater Success.
Wow. Congratulations. That's such a great story of how you organically absorbed all of these skills along the way. And what we have in common is, at first, I didn't start in corporate either. I was a special education teacher, and I started looking around and thinking that, wow, there's something more here that I want to do, and started just absorbing things around sales, marketing, developing service offerings. And I think for our listeners who are also those achievers, I would venture to guess that on Clifton Strength Finders, you have an achiever somewhere in your top 5 that, sometimes that is your path to entrepreneurship. And so you don't have to necessarily come from a corporate spot, but your insights and your instincts on let's go big, let's do some, the other key word I heard you say was doing some market research before you launched your coaching and consulting business, and love your positioning on building smarter and better leaders. And kudos for firing that accountant. Anyone who abuses you and can't line up behind your vision, just doesn't belong there. So tell us a little bit more about what kind of companies are you working with now? What challenges do you see these leaders facing that you swoop in to help them solve?
I work an enormous amount in the professional service space. So with law firms, attorneys, CPAs, CFOs, marketing, advertising, communications, PR companies, and a few other wonderful organizations along that ilk. I always say it's a little comical that I have really helped companies scale and lead to the multiple 7 figures in the service-based area when I came from over 20 years of selling a product.
Yeah. So tell us where these CEOs, CFOs, these small business service owners are when you come in. What are some of the things that they're reaching out to you about with, hey, Ivy, I need to talk to you about?
Companies come to me, and it's interesting. They're not necessarily new companies. There's companies that have already done very well. Sometimes they come for a couple of different reasons. One pain point is they realize they've gotten stale. They have stopped leading forward. They're just running their business. And when you do that and you stop looking forward and with strategy, with vision, become vulnerable to actually falling out of the marketplace. So they come with that issue. Another issue is when the leadership team or the leaders, the founders are ready, like, well, I want to kind of start, I'm not looking to sell the company, but I also am looking for maybe a little, to raise the leadership team of not all this being on my shoulders. Who's going to be the leaders of tomorrow in 5 years? That doesn't happen by just a hire, and it doesn't happen in a 6 to 12 month viewpoint. It happens on raising people's skill sets as leaders and developing them as leaders over several years. I did this with one of my clients. I've been working with them probably about 2.5, 3 years now. And they brought me in. It was, the founder of the company is like, I want to take a 2.5 week vacation and go literally to New Zealand, like working not even a different time zone, a different day zone, right? And I said, okay. And she goes, it made me realize that the people under me are great, but they don't know enough about actually leading this organization. What happens if something would happen? And so I was brought in literally for the goal for her to have, on the short perspective of it, for her to have a 2.5 week vacation, right? 2.5, 3 years later, her leadership team is absolutely fabulous. They have developed, they have grown, they are leading and looking at the financials, the strategy, the growth into next year. They have bigger goals and aspirations than she ever did. And in a meeting that I'm going in, we're going to be doing their strategic planning in the next couple of weeks. We have a meeting set. And the younger leaders are now moving that organization in a bolder, bigger way. And she's sitting back with this huge smile on her face. And, when I saw them last month, the young leaders left and we were in the conference room for another few minutes. And she goes, can I just give you a hug? She goes, did you see them? Did you see them? I said, I know, I did. And she goes, I am so excited for the future. She goes, it's given me a rebirth for this whole organization. Where are we going? She goes, I'm getting a little older. You would think like I'm ready to wind down. I am more excited than ever based on their energy and their vision of where we're going. And so it's a onward giving gift.
It's so interesting to hear you speak about that and tell that story. And what I got out of it was that it's all about the vision and the strategy. And what happens in the early years is that sometimes when you have that early success and your early vision and your early strategy starts paying off, then you're on this hamster wheel of continuing the operation as you have. And then there's this feeling of it's like the airplane or the bus starting to shimmy and shake, and you're afraid that the wheels are going to fall off. So making that time for the vision and strategy and where you're going and how are you building up leaders is so important.
It is. And the investment that is made into the leaders of tomorrow is an investment that the ROI long term is massive. Short term, you are making an investment. I'm not going to kid you, but long term, the long term success of the business, the organization, and where it is going when you're bringing up strong leaders. And that's from looking at back in the days to when I was a receptionist. That's when, every person that touches every person in an organization is a leader. We are all leaders unless we choose to not see ourselves as leaders. We're all leaders if we choose to see ourselves as leaders. So every person in an organization has value. And when they are invested in development, on the value they have in every role there, you will have a better team of better employees.
I love that. I mean, you're bringing out my inner Oprah. That's a tweetable. Every person who touches another person is a leader in your organization. So let's talk about the transition from being the leader to building a leadership team. So what's important, as you work with these leaders, and I understand that you're working with people at a later stage, but when you're in that early stage of building up your leadership team and thinking about your first hires, what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing inexperienced CEOs make?
I don't think if it matters if your first hires are as important as your hires when you're 5 and 10 and 20 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's so wonderful when even if you're hiring your first contractor, your first virtual assistant, every person you hire. So I have worked with VAs for years now, and they've been some wonderful ones on my team. I don't treat them any differently than I treat a full-time employee. Mm-hmm. I treat every team member of equal value to my organization. And I always have, even when I was a printer, if you were my receptionist, my bookkeeper, or my production manager, every person had equal value. Because the receptionist, although might not seem as important as the production manager, they were the first point of contact with that client.
Absolutely.
That. And so I truly think every person you hire, from the earliest on to the first contractor, the first part-time somebody, mm-hmm. if you're delegating your bookkeeping first, to your marketing first, to whatever it is, that you are bringing every person on your team as if they have as much value as you do.
That's a great point. And, that's where new growing consultancies go first, right? You have a virtual assistant, maybe you hire a marketing agency, a bookkeeper for sure, because you shouldn't be wearing all the hats in your business. So let's talk about the foundations. Because after the first freelance hires, when you're ready to actually have your very first employee and you're growing your teams, what is the foundation that entrepreneurs need to have in place in order to build the right conditions for having a team that works well together, that comes together around the strategy and the vision and gets to that place of taking the vision even further, like that example that you gave, of exciting and igniting the CEO of the company because the new leadership team is even bringing the vision forward faster. So what are the early decisions that we need to make and make correctly in order to have that foundation in place?
I think a few foundation steps is create a vision, as the CEO of your company. Even if you're one person and you're solo at the beginning, start acting as a CEO. Start seeing that and start saying, okay, what am I taking off my plate first and why? And then when you go to bring that person on to hire, you will see, because it's connected to the why you're taking that off the plate, the amount of value that has in the organization. Is this making sense?
Yeah, it is. It's making pure sense, because when you were talking about vision and strategy, is that you start with a vision, but it's not necessarily true that you revisit that vision, and that vision needs to be revisited. And yes, what you're doing to grow the business. I mean, we were just having a talk in my accelerator this week, and I said, create Post-it notes for all the things that you need to get done in your business, and then create another color Post-it note for all the things that you need to delegate in your business that you can't continue doing if your business is going to grow. But we don't frequently talk about revisiting the vision. So I think that's a key strategy. So how do you go through the process of deciding what am I taking off my plate first and why? Are there some criteria that you recommend people, or a thought process that they should think through before they make that decision?
Absolutely. And I'm going to share an exercise I give so many of my clients, and I've done myself numerous times. I started this exercise when I needed to start figuring this out, and then I've had every one of my clients do it. It's a 2-week commitment. Keep however you make lists. So we're of all ilks, of ages and styles. So there's no judgment here. So if you're a writer-downer, right? People who write down lists, keep a pad, keep one sheet of paper next to you. If you keep a list on your phone, open a new doc, right? On your phone, on your computer, whatever your system is. For 2 weeks, write down everything you don't like doing. Write down everything that is taking up your time from moving your business forward. So number 1, everything you don't like doing. Number 2, everything that's taking up time that is stopping you from moving your business forward. Grunt work, number 3, okay? That doesn't mean that you're going to hire everybody in a day, but we're going to keep that running list for 2 weeks. And then you're going to do an evaluation afterwards. And you're going to say, okay, if what's taking up the most of my time that's stopping my business from moving forward, that could be the first course of action to delegate. And you might circle 3 things and say, okay, what is the first position I'm going to hire? It's right there. It's in, I hate to say pen and paper now, you know I'm a list writer, right? Yeah. Or black and white, right? If you're on the phone. It's right there in front of you. It's giving you your first and second hire, if not your third hire, right in front of you. Now, then it's for you to go back and look at your business's financial strategy and say, great, on a financial basis, who's my first hire and how do I make this happen? Once I now hire them, I could bring this much more business in and then I can make my second hire.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so how frequently is the first hire someone in sales versus service delivery? And does that depend on what the CEO enjoys doing most or the things that will really make the business go forward, or both?
You have to do you have to be practical. So I'll always say, business success is an enormous amount about practicality and a little bit of woo or luck. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if we look at the practical piece, if I see, and I'm just going to pull an example, this does not mean this is a factual example, I'm just making up an example. If I'm insisting that I'm doing all my bookkeeping, paying my bills, and doing my invoicing, and it's taking me 5 hours a week, and I know I can dedicate those 5 hours, and I could probably make 2 more sales, is that of value? I might look at that same list and say, gee, I'm doing my newsletter, I'm making my own website, I'm writing blogs, I'm updating my database, my CRM system, blah, blah. This is taking me 10 hours a week or the same 5 hours a week. Okay. Let's say it's equal. They're both taking me 5 hours a week and I can hire one person and I like doing one thing more than the other. Whatever I don't like doing is what I'm going to delegate first, because it's going to keep me more productive. And because I don't like doing it, it's probably taking me longer than it would take somebody else.
Yeah, there might be some resistance around it. And so I like what you're thinking. In my mind, I kind of put a label on that called return on effort. What is my return on effort here? I knew from the start that I didn't like managing numbers. So I quickly went from spreadsheets to hiring a bookkeeper who kept everything in QuickBooks, and then a virtual CFO who was helping me strategically do projections and decide when I could bring on people to hire. But I love your practicality plus woo plus luck formula. I think that's a great one. If you're taking notes, definitely take that one away. Because these aren't easy decisions, because you are investing in people. And while it might make sense for a bookkeeper or, a virtual assistant to be your very first hires, as you grow, the strategies that got you from, 0 to your first $250,000, and then the strategies for hiring and leading that get you from your first $250,000 to your first $500,000 and then to $1 million or more are different strategies. Would you say so?
Right.
Yeah. So what are some of the differences in once you're going from growing to actually scaling? How do you need to make decisions differently as a CEO?
Growing and scaling. When you start small, right, you're looking at what is coming off your plate. So we're looking at mindset right now, okay? When you're looking at growing, you're seeing what comes off that CEO plate that will help the company grow. When you look to scale, you're looking from a different perspective. You're saying, what do we want to add here that will help us scale forward? Do we want to bring in more attorneys or paralegals? Do we want to expand our sales team? what are we adding to the company to scale it? Versus on the growing perspective in the early stages, what are you taking off your plate that will help this company grow so you could do a better job? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. And again, tied to the vision and the strategy for growth. And it might be, maybe we have a service-based business, and to scale, we also want to add a product to it. So maybe you have a proprietary methodology that could be turned into a software package, and it's something else that you can sell that brings leverage and scalability into the business. So there's scaling your services, and there's maybe also adding a product to the portfolio.
Right. You might be adding a product. You might be adding another stream of income. You might be adding more people who actually work with your clients so you can take on more clients. You might be adding a sales team or more people to your sales team. It's an adding to for the scalability.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And from my perspective, when I see a lot of coaches and consultants in the 250 to 300 range, it kind of depends on where your values are as well. Is your value in being the person that actually delivers the service, or is your value to the enterprise, the growing enterprise, being the one who does all the business development and makes all the connections because of your network? Because for me, it seems just a natural, and I'm speaking personally here, Ivy, is that it seems natural for me at this stage to hire someone to go out and do more of the sales in the business, because what gives me the most joy is actually the service delivery. And I could handle more clients and scale the business faster if I actually had someone going out there and doing sales.
And that makes perfect sense. Mm-hmm. That makes perfect sense. And it's different for each person. What I'm hearing you say is you checked in with yourself. Mm-hmm. You checked in with yourself and said, what brings me most contentment? Because when I'm content, I know this can scale. Other people might bring in more associate coaches. Here's an interesting thing. A client said to me, Ivy, what about the scale of your own business? What are you doing about that? Right? And we just did a team retreat the other day for Slater Success for our strategy, our growth strategy, and for 2022. One of my team members said, I see you need to bring in X amount of more clients the way you have in order to reach the numbers you're looking to get to next year. And I said, I disagree with you. She goes, no, it's math. I was like, no, I get it. It's math. I said, but you're saying the way we've done it before. Mm-hmm. You're not showing up at the retreat in 100% innovative way of what can we be doing what can we be doing interestingly, innovatively, and then from a fresh perspective in 2022 that will grow our revenue without looking at just adding more of what we have. We're not looking at things in an innovative fashion. I said, that's where this is going to start. And she's like, oh, wow, this is getting really exciting.
Yes. And, it's so empowering, too, when you bring your team in. I mean, I've been working with my virtual assistant who runs all my campaigns. We're working together about 3 years now, and she now thinks for me, right? So she brings new perspective and historical knowledge and technical knowledge to the team that I don't have. But the opportunity that's on the table when you hit a certain level and you're looking to grow or scale is, where can I add to my business model? Is the current model under which I'm delivering my services going to serve me to that next level of growth? Is it going to enable me to scale my business and impact more people? And certainly, is it going to bring in the necessary revenues that we need in order to scale? So love that approach. Love the team retreat approach as well, Ivy.
It's important to make sure it doesn't matter how large or small your company is. What is very important is to make sure you're spending time working in your business and not just on your business.
Yeah, amen. And it's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. I have preached that forever, and I'm finding myself transparently in this fourth quarter just feeling like I am in catch-up mode all the time. And I have a business value that I don't work weekends and I don't work late into the night, but I'm feeling a little constrained right now. And it's so interesting to do this introspection. And here I am teaching my growth strategy workshops, and I haven't had time to sit down and do my own growth strategy for next year. So full disclosure, these are the real struggles that we go through here. Ivy, what are some of the other, just one more tip or strategy that you can share with our listeners of when you're feeling in this hamster wheel position, understanding, I loved what you said for 2 weeks, keep that running list of everything that I don't like doing, the things that are taking time away from me moving forward in my business, and certainly all the grunt work, and looking at who to hire next. You mentioned mindset so much. What is the number one thing that you see of CEOs of a growing business getting in their own way? And what's one tip that our listeners can take away to do something about it?
One of the things I see that CEOs that get in CEOs' way is sometimes we have a little bit of lack of confidence or self-doubt that creeps up. Mm-hmm. And it can sometimes show up in looking like overwhelm. Mm-hmm. I'm so overwhelmed. I can't get anything more done. I can't do it. So it's the bud is the self-doubt, lack of confidence showing up in protecting us as I'm so overwhelmed.
Connect that for us. How does the lack of confidence show up in overwhelm? What's actually going on mentally that results in that overwhelm?
Well, you're protecting yourself from not being able to do any more. This isn't the right time. I'm so overwhelmed. I have so much to do right now. I can't get to X, Y, and Z, or this isn't the right time for us to do this because we have so much on our plate already, as opposed to looking, right? And so it's a layer of self-protection. Mm-hmm. I've actually never spoken about this in this way, but I truly, truly believe it in my heart of hearts and have been there. Mm-hmm. It's looking myself in a mirror when I say, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed. It's like, what's stopping me right now? Because I have a team of several and I could delegate a lot more. And I'm always the person who's telling people to hire. And I looked at my team yesterday in our strategic planning meeting and I said, ladies, if we need to hire more, we will, because we're going here next. And so if I'm sticking in that overwhelm, it's somewhere I'm protecting myself, or we're protecting ourselves from moving forward. And why is that? Are we a little nervous? We're uncomfortable. We know the comfort zone is not the growth zone.
Right.
What are we doing?
And I've been uncovering lately this mindset of, for women especially, that there is this unseen and unrecognized lack of deserving. And I think it's women because frequently we don't ask for help because we're the helpers. Mm-hmm. So that's the first one. And also, how much success do I really deserve? So the overwhelm, and it's making sense to me, the overwhelm and the hamster wheel syndrome might be that I'm really afraid to go big, because going big means I have to step out of my comfort zone. I have to step into a bigger level of deserving for my business, and I have to invest and operate at a higher level of thinking. Does that make sense?
100%.
Great. I think we've landed in a perfect spot, Ivy. And I love our conversations because I never know where it's going to go. I have a couple of rough questions, and thank you for playing with me and not needing to have the conversation completely laid out in advance. So my friends, this was completely ad hoc and fresh off the minds here of, Ivy Slater, who has significant experience growing services-based businesses, who's an excellent leadership coach. So, Ivy, if our listeners want to connect with you, learn more from you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Easy. Go to slatersuccess.com. You can find all about me and Slater Success. You could download a complimentary chapter of my book. There's a great video on there that you could have access to that's called 7 Traits of Great Leadership, that you can start working with yourself in growing and scaling your organization to have everything you ever wanted.
Oh, I'm downloading that one, 7 Traits of Great Leadership. Ivy, thank you so much for your generosity in being with me today and sharing with the Life After Corporate listeners. I so appreciate you.
And I appreciate you having me here, Deb, and I'm always a joy to talk with you.
Oh, thank you so much. That's it for now, my friends. Listen again if you want to be sure you capture all the jewels that Ivy laid upon you and how to grow your business and how to grow yourself as a leader. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening, my friend. If you enjoyed this show, please head over to iTunes and subscribe and leave us a review. And be sure to hop over to the Life After Corporate Facebook group and join other growing entrepreneurs to get weekly tips on how to create more money and meaning doing work you love.